This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, good morning, Rabbi Glatstein. Parshas Vaschanan. The beginning of the Parsha tells us how Moshe Rabbeinu davened to Hashem many, many times. Kaminyan Vaschanan, 515 times. The Gematria Vaschanan. And ultimately, Rebbeinu Shalom said, no. Close but no cigar. Hashem said, Rav Lach al Toisef. Enough already. Don't add one additional prayer. The implication is that had Moshe Rabbeinu added one more tefillah, if he would have davened the 516th tefillah, then he would have been answered. But for some reason, 515 tefillahs are just close but no cigar, and one extra tefillah would have done it, but Hashem said, I don't want to hear that extra tefillah. So very interesting that Rizal says that we actually do say the 516th tefillah. What's the 516th tefillah? Yiskadel is a yud. V'yiskadesh is a vav, Shemei shin, Rabbah reish, Gematria 516. So Arizal says the 516th tefillah that Hashem told Moshe Rabbeinu not to say, we say it. We say it. Because ultimately what we're hoping for is Yehei Shmei Rabbah Mevarach La'olam Yomei Omaya. So according to the Arizal, the purpose of Kaddish is to be mamale the 516th tefillah that Moshe Rabbeinu didn't say. That Hashem said, please do me a favor, don't say it. It's also very interesting that we know when we say Kriya Shema, we don't say Baruch Shem Kvod Malchus Le'olam Vad. Why not? Because we have this great dilemma, right? We say it quietly. We have this great dilemma. Because on the one hand, Moshe Rabbeinu didn't say it. And on the other hand, Yaakov Avinu did say it. So what do we do if Yaakov says, go for it, and Moshe Rabbeinu says, don't say it? So we say it quietly. I have a question for you. Did Moshe Rabbeinu say you can't say it? He didn't say you can't say it. He just didn't get around to it. He didn't say it. So Yaakov Avinu said it. I mean, Avraham Avinu didn't say it either. Well, why are we picking on Moshe Rabbeinu? Well, because he said Shema and he went to the next pasuk. He didn't say you can't say it.
We simply have another source for it. That's all.
Right, we have a different source. So what's the problem? What are Chazal saying that Moshe Rabbeinu didn't say it? Where did he not say it? So according to what we're saying, it's beautiful. Because Hashem told Moshe, don't say Tefillah 516. Tefillah 516 is what? Yiskadel v'yiskadei Shmei Rabbah. Right? So Hashem is telling Moshe, don't say Yiskadel v'yiskadei Shmei Rabbah. Yiskadel v'yiskadei Shmei Rabbah is the Targum of Baruch Shem. So if Hashem told Moshe, don't say it, this tefillah that Hashem's saying, Rav Lach al Toisef, Hashem is telling Moshe, don't say the tefillah. So that's the dilemma. On the one hand, Yaakov Avinu said it, and on the other hand, Moshe was told not to say it. Because really, Yiskadel v'Yiskadel Shmei Rabbah parallels Yehei Shmei Rabbah Mevarach La'olam Yomei Omaya. If you look at the Targum on the words on Baruch Shem, right? Targum says Yiskadel v'Yiskadel. Okay, very interesting. Take a look in on your sheets from the Emes Yaakov of Yaakov Kamenetsky, and we'll begin in this light. You know, B'chlal, what is the whole purpose of Parshas Vaschanan? What do we care if Moshe Rabbeinu davened and he wasn't answered? So if he wasn't answered, leave out the whole episode. I need to know Moshe davened and Hashem said no. Oh, what do I get? What lesson do we learn from there? So says the Ibn Ezra. Right? For some reason, people like to call it Ibn Ezra. You know, they get confused between the Sefer and the Chelek of Shulchan Aruch. His name was Ibn means Ben. Right? Ibn Ezra says, the Tachlis, the purpose of Parshas Vaschanan. V'tam zu ha-Parsha, lechabe v'saretz Yisrael. It's a good limud after Tisha B'Av. The purpose of Parshas Vaschanan is to love Eretz Yisrael. Because if you see how many tefillos Moshe Rabbeinu offered to be able to go into Eretz Yisrael, that will engender an avas Eretz Yisrael. V'yim ha'aretz tiyeh chaviva, says Ibn Ezra. And if you love Eretz Yisrael, yishmeru mitzvahs Hashem. You'll keep the mitzvahs. Very mysterious comment. If you love Eretz Yisrael, you'll keep the mitzvahs. And let's say you don't love Eretz Yisrael, then you won't keep the mitzvahs. Let's say you have a guy, he doesn't love Eretz Yisrael. So then he's going to say, well, I could eat treif, I could eat chazer, I could wear shatnez. I mean, what does Eretz Yisrael have to do with Shmir mitzvahs? You have to keep the mitzvahs regardless of Eretz Yisrael. Whether you love it or you don't love it, you still have to keep the law. So I believe what the Ibn Ezra is saying is that the Gemara says in Masechta Shabbos on Daf Peiches, Amar Rav Avdimi, Amar Rabbi, Amar Rav Chama, Amar Rav Chasa, Melamed Shekaf Aleim Har Kegigas, Shenemar Vayisiatzu B'Tachtas Har. That the Rebbeinu Shalom suspended the mountain over our heads, and he says, Mekavmas HaTorah Mutav. You accept the Torah, very good. V'im Lav Sham Tehei Kfurascham. Fine, that we're all familiar with that we were coerced to accept the Torah, right? Amar Rava said, Mikan Maida Rabba Loi Raisa. We see from here, we have an excuse when it comes to the Torah, right? In other words, a Jew, he does an Avera, Hashem says, I'm going to punish you. So the Jew says, what are you going to punish me for? I didn't want it in the first place. I never was willing to accept this. You wanted me to take it, but I didn't want to take it. So Rava is saying that Hashem really can't punish a Jew. Why? Because we never accepted it willingly. Mikan, Maida, we have a Maida on the Torah. God can never punish us. Because anytime He comes to punish us, we could say, we never wanted it. And then the Gemara says, don't worry, Hadar Kibla B'Mei Achashverosh, later on, in the times of Purim, we accepted it willingly. And in other words, from that point then on, Hashem could punish us. But before the Purim story, Hashem can't punish us. Right? That's what the Gemara seems to be saying. So the Rashba asks, very good. So how did Hashem kick us out of Eretz Yisrael to begin with? Right? During the times of Bayis Rishon, Avodah Zarah, Gilui Arayos, Shvichas Damim. What's the problem? How could Hashem kick us out of Eretz Yisrael? Mikan Moida Rabba Loi Raisa. We should have invoked Shabbos Peiches, that we are not required to keep the Torah because Hashem stuffed it down our throat. He forced us into it. Okay, that's a good question. But the Gemara, that's, the Rishonim asked that, Tosfos asked that, Medrash Tanchuma asked that. But the conclusion of Shas is, however you get around the Nasav and Ishma, the Shas says, Mikan Moida Rabba Loi Raisa.
What does that mean, Mikan Moida Rabba Loi?
A Moida is, let's say you sell something to someone, but you tell someone before, I don't really mean to sell it to him. I'm only selling it to him because he has a gun to my head. So that is a Moida to begin with, that you're giving a disclaimer. It's a disclaimer. In other words, it's a disclaimer. Hashem doesn't have the authority to punish us because we're not in on the deal.
Coerced.
Where it's coerced. So the Rashba asks, so how did Hashem kick us out of Eretz Yisrael in the first place? Says the Rashba, when the Gemara says that Hashem can't punish us, that's before we get to Eretz Yisrael. Because before we get to Eretz Yisrael, we were never willing to accept the Torah. But Eretz Yisrael, there's a new deal. The deal is, it's a land of Shmiras HaMitzvahs. You want to stay in the land, you have to keep the Torah. You don't keep the Torah, the land will vomit you out. That's the laws of the land. It has nothing to do with Kabbalah HaTorah. Hashem gave us the Torah, we didn't want it. So in the Midbar, if we would have violated the Torah, no punishment. Says the Rashba, once we entered Eretz Yisrael, it's a new deal, all bets are off. Hashem says, I'm giving you the land, I'll menas that you keep the Torah. If you don't keep the Torah, it's not yours anymore. So in the Bayis Rishon, we violated Avodah Zarah, Gilui Shvichas Damim. Hashem says, fine, you're out of here. So what the Ibn Ezra is saying, the purpose of V'aschanan is to love Eretz Yisrael, and if you love Eretz Yisrael, you'll keep the mitzvahs. But if you don't love Eretz Yisrael, then you won't keep the mitzvahs. You know why? Because Hashem will throw you out, and out of Eretz Yisrael, you don't have to keep the Torah. Before Purim. Once Purim came along, Hadar Kibla B'Mei Achashverosh. Okay. With that Hakdama, very interesting passage from Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky in the Emes Yaakov. Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky quotes Chazal, Masechta Soita, Daf Yudalad Amud Aleph. We know that Moshe Rabbeinu wanted to go into Eretz Yisrael. He only davened 515 times. Say Chazal, Mibnei man yisaveh Moshe likanis la'Eretz Yisrael. Why did Moshe Rabbeinu want to go into Eretz Yisrael? What did he want? Sunflower seeds. Garinim. Why did he want to go into Eretz Yisrael? V'chilecha mipir yehutzarach. He liked the fruits. Oilis baya mituva. He liked the bread. Elakach amar Moshe. Moshe said the following: Harbe mitzvahs nitztavu Yisrael. Klal Yisrael was commanded on many mitzvahs. Ve'ein miskaymin ela b'Eretz Yisrael. And the only place to fulfill them is in Eretz Yisrael. Shmita, only in Eretz Yisrael. Shumas, Maisros, only in Eretz Yisrael. Many of the mitzvahs atzulis ba'aretz are only in Eretz Yisrael. So Moshe Rabbeinu said, living in Chutzars, I have no Shemitah, I have no Chumash, I have no Maisros, I can't fulfill all these mitzvahs. At Kanes ani la'aretz, I want to go into Eretz Yisrael, Kedei sheyiskaimu kulan al yadi, so that all the mitzvahs I will be able to fulfill. So ask Rabbi Yaakov, what in the world is the Gemara asking? Why did Moshe Rabbeinu want to go into Eretz Yisrael? To which the Gemara answers, he wanted to go in to fulfill mitzvahs hatzluyos va'aretz. The Gemara should have said plain and pashut. You know why Moshe Rabbeinu wanted to go into Eretz Yisrael? Because there's a mitzvah saseh d'oraisa of Yishuv Eretz Yisrael. There's a mitzvah to live in Eretz Yisrael. The Ramban writes that even today, there's a mitzvah d'oraisa of Yishuv Eretz Yisrael. Machlekes hapoiskim. Rav Yosef says it's a mitzvah chiyuvis. You have a mitzvah to pick yourself up and go there. Rav Moshe Feinstein says no. Rav Moshe says it's only a mitzvah kiyumis, and therefore we have to be worried about the opinion of Rav Chaim and Tosfos that the mitzvahs at Tzulis are very difficult. So Rav Moshe says not to go. Rav Moshe says since it's only a mitzvah kiyumis, you have other considerations that should prevent you. But everybody agrees that either you're mechuyev to, or it's a admirable thing. So why would Chazal have to say, oh, why did Moshe Rabbeinu want to go into Eretz Yisrael? Because he wanted to keep Shemitah. I mean, hit the nail on the head. He wanted to go into Eretz Yisrael to Mekayim the mitzvah d'oraisa of Yishuv Eretz Yisrael. By the way, there's an amazing Chassam Sofer, Masechta Sukkah. Chassam Sofer says, in Megillas Rus, you have this guy Boaz, right? The Gadol Hadar. Gadol Hadar, imagine if, we heard about the Gadol Hadar. Where does he spend his time? He's in the field. He's in the field all day. What's he doing in the field? Man, what's our picture of a Gadol Hadar? He's wearing talis and tefillin. He's learning Torah. And Boaz, the whole Megillah, the God, he's in the field. He's sleeping in the field. He shouldn't be in the field. He should be in the Beis Medrash. So says the Chassam Sofer. Okay, you could check it up. Masechta Sukkah. Would you have a kasha if we told you, Boaz was at a pidyon haben, or Boaz, was being Mekayim bris milah, or Boaz was wearing tefillin? Well, he should have been in the Beis Medrash. Of course not. He had a mitzvah d'oraisa to fulfill. Boaz lives in Eretz Yisrael. He's mechuyev, says the Chassam Sofer. He has to work the land. It's a mitzvah of the Yishuv Eretz Yisrael. So there's no kasha what Boaz is doing in the field, says the Chassam Sofer. So why are Chazal saying that Moshe Rabbeinu wanted to go into Eretz Yisrael? Why? To fulfill mitzvahs hatzluyos. What about the Iker mitzvah of Yishuv? So ask Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky, L'chayra yesh lanu lahavin. We have to understand this. Kushas Chazal, Mibnei Manis, Ava Moshe, Ha'muto olav l'kayim mitzvahs Yishuv Eretz Yisrael, V'mkei mishum zel levad, yirtzuhu likanes. So really, this is not Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky's question. This dates back to the Chemdas Yisrael. But the truth is, it's not even the Chemdas Yisrael's question. Because I saw last night, in the Meshech Chachma Parshas Re'eh, the Meshech Chachma quotes the Ramban, who learns that Yishuv Eretz Yisrael is a mitzvah d'oraisa. Says the Meshech Chachma, but other Rishonim say there's no such mitzvah. Where? How could you say such a thing? There's no mitzvah to live in Eretz Yisrael. It's the Gemara in Sait on Daf Yudaled. That from the fact that the Gemara says Moshe Rabbeinu wanted to go into Eretz Yisrael to be Mekayim, Trumas, Maisus, Shemitah, and the Gemara doesn't hit the nail on the head and say he wanted to go in to be Mekayim Yishuv, some Rishonim say there is no mitzvah in the Torah of Yishuv Eretz Yisrael. What the Meshech Chachma brings down. To live there. Yeah. Now, says the Meshech Chachma, he quotes the Reish Daled Mem, the Hareish Daled Mem, the Chidush of Tama. By the way, who's the Baal HaMemra in Soita? Mibnei Manis Ave Moshe Likanas Eretz Yisrael? Who said that statement? We don't have it on the sheets. But it's Amar Reb Simloi. By the way, Reb Simloi has another statement in Shas. Reb Simloi was the one who said, Taryag mitzvahs b'Torah. So if Reb Simloi was the one who said Moshe Rabbeinu wanted to go into Eretz Yisrael to make Mekayim mitzvahs tzvos v'aretz, and Rabbi Simloi is the one who said the 613. Obviously, on Rabbi Simloi's list of 613 is not Yishuv Eretz Yisrael. So the Reish Daled Mem says the Ramban must be wrong in listing Yishuv Eretz Yisrael, because when Rabbi Simloi said 613, he wasn't referring to Yishuv. So what's the Ramban going to do with this Gemara? Says Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky. What? The Ramban is going on the Messiah of the 613 of Rabbi Simloi. Yeah, but what does he do? He rubs some of his machlokes tanoim. Yeah, but not by Yishuv Eretz Yisrael. Yeah, but there's no. What is the Ramban going to do with this? Says Rabbi Yaakov. V'ulai yesh lo yichiach mizeh. Perhaps we could prove from here. Ki mitzvahs Yishuv Eretz Yisrael eina ela l'mi sheyesh lo chelek v'nachal be'Eretz Yisrael. The mitzvah of the Yishuv is only someone who owns real estate. So if you own real estate, you got to go live there. Since Shevet Levi, Moshe included, had no real estate in Eretz Yisrael. No, that's not a nachala. Imkain ulai hayu pturim gami mitzvahs Yishuv Eretz Yisrael. Could be, says Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky, in order to be mekayim the mitzvah, you need land. And if you don't have land, you're potter. So Chazal want to know, why does Moshe Rabbeinu want to go into Eretz Yisrael for what? The mitzvah? There's no mitzvah for him. So Chazal say, but he could have been mekayim the mitzvah satzliyos ba'aretz. By the way, the Meshech Chochmah says the same thing to defend the Ramban. He says like this. If you're going to think... One second. Okay, well, we're going to get to what he says. Okay? That's the answer of Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky, that in order to be mekayim the mitzvah of Yishuv Eretz Yisrael, you need to own land. Is there a psachim over here?
Yeah.
Oh, beautiful. Okay, we say in davening on the Shalosh Regalim, the Hashev Kayhanim Avaydasam, Ulashir Ulaviyim Shiurim Ulazimram, the Hashev Yisrael Lenavayim Visham Nalev Neirav Neshtachava Lefanecha. Ask the Brisker Rav like this. Ask the Brisker Rav. Okay, I understand. We're talking about the mitzvah of Aliyah L'Regel, and we're saying the Kohanim should return to their Avodah. Beautiful, we want that. That's what we're davening Musaf. Davening Musaf, we want the carbon Musaf back. And then, obviously, if we bring the carbonates, we need the Leviim to sing Shira, Leviim L'Shim. V'hashev Yisrael in Avayim, and the Jews should go back to their houses. What do we need the Jews to go back to their houses for? That's what we're missing. That the regular Jews should go back to their houses. It's not malav loy moirid if the Jews go back to their houses. They don't go back to their houses. Why are we injecting Shmanesei? Hashem, we're yearning. V'hashev kayan la'avaydasam levim l'shim l'zimram v'hashev Yisrael l'nveyam. So Tosfos in the beginning of Psachim has a kasha about Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira. That Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira was not Oilei Regel. Why was Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira not Oilei Regel? Says Tosfos a Chiddush, in order to be Mekayim, the mitzvah of Aliyah L'Regel, you need to own land in Eretz Yisrael. Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira perhaps did not own land in Eretz Yisrael, and therefore he's exempt from the mitzvah of Aliyah L'Regel. So we're saying a very similar thing over here, that in order to be Mekayim the mitzvah of Yishuv Eretz Yisrael, you need to own land in Eretz Yisrael, and if you don't own land, there's no way to be Mekayim the mitzvah. Says the Brisker Rav, the Hashev Kayhanim La'avaydasa, Ulaviyim L'Shiram U'Lazimram. But we still can't be Oilei Regel yet, because we need the Hashev Yisrael in Avayim. Because according to Shitas Tosfos, if Klal Yisrael doesn't return to their real estate, there's no mitzvah of Aliyah L'Regel. So the Hashev Yisrael in Avayim, Visham, and only then, Na'alev and Eirav and Ishtachav Elefanecha. So if you want a good way to remember Tosfos and Psachim, just think of the tefillah of the Shalosh Regalim.
Maybe that's the reason the Levim didn't come back to Tarot Pesach. They were required.
I mean, they didn't have a chiyuv of...
Israel, so they didn't come back.
Interesting thought. By the way, what's Tosfos talking about there? Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira didn't have a chelik in Eretz Yisrael? How could such a thing be? Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira? No Jew doesn't have a chelik in Eretz Yisrael, unless you're a ger. Every Jew has a chelik in Eretz Yisrael.
How can you Irish from the tzibur also? How can you say, "Oh, I don't have a chelik, I don't have to come back"?
I'm not part of the tzibur.
You are. Levium are part. That's not their role. Is not to have the land. Their role is to have the miklat and to do the avodah.
Okay, look. Ultimately, Levium were punished. Ezra penalized Levium. He took away their Meiser Rishon. But maybe they had some kind of justification. But I believe Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshit says that the Gemara in Masechta Sanhedrin says that who are the Mesim that Yecheskel brought back to life? Who are the dry bones in the Nevuah of Yecheskel? The Gemara brings down one opinion. They were the Bnei Ephraim who tried to go into Eretz Yisrael 30 years earlier, and they didn't make it. And others say no, the bones that Yecheskel brought back to life, like Hayav Nivra, never happened. Amar Rabbi Yehuda Raglav. Rabbi Yehuda stood up. He said, "What are you talking about? I'm from them. My Alta Zeda were the Bnei Ephraim, and I'm even wearing their tefillin." So Rabbi Yehuda was from Shevet Ephraim. Ephraim had no chelek ba'aretz. They never went into Eretz Yisrael. They died out. What? Those people. In other words, he was a descendant of those people who had no chelek ba'aretz. Because it was given to the Yotzei Mitzrayim. They weren't Yotzei Mitzrayim.
Actually, Ephraim was one of the smallest tribes when they went into Israel because they lost so many people.
Yeah, okay. Now that's one answer given by Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky. Why Chazal specifically referred to the mitzvah Satzuyas Ba'aretz and not the Ikar mitzvah.
How could he be a descendant if they died?
They were brought back to life in the times of Yecheskel, and they got married, and they had a nice descendant named Rabbi Yehuda ben Meseira. Right? It's the Gemara in the beginning of Chelek. Yeah, in Bavel. Yes. Okay. Rabbi Yaakov gives another answer. The first answer that we skipped over. Ve'efshir de savri, the mitzvah is yishuv Eretz Yisrael, efshir lekayim gam al yedei iver hayardin. You get the mitzvah d'oraisa of yishuv Eretz Yisrael by living in the Transjordan. You don't have to live in Eretz Yisrael proper. You could even live in Ever HaYarden. By the way, the Meshech Chochmah says the same thing to answer a different kasha. The Bnei Gad, Bnei Ruvain come to Moshe Rabbeinu. They say, Moshe, we want to stay here at Ever HaYarden. Asks the Meshech Chochmah, how could Moshe Rabbeinu say, yeah, Gesundheit hate stay here at Ever HaYarden? They're being mavato and mitzvah d'oraisa of Yishuv Eretz Yisrael. The answer is, no, they weren't. They were living in Eretz Yisrael. That part of Ever HaYarden has the status of Eretz Yisrael, the Gabi, the mitzvah of Yishuv Haaretz. Trumas Hamas is irrespective. Oh, so it might not be chayv in Trumas Hamaisus. So the kasha is, why did Moshe Rabbeinu want to go into Eretz Yisrael? What do you mean? He wanted to be Mekayim Yishuv. He was being Mekayim Yishuv, Lever LeYarden. So why did he want to go in? Oh, because the mitzvah Satzuyas Ba'aretz, you need to be in Eretz Yisrael proper. That's what Chazal are saying. By the way, according to the first answer we gave, perhaps that's why Bnei Gad and Bnei Ruvain would not be being mevato mitzvah d'oraisa. Because if they're not going to go into Eretz Yisrael, they're not going to have a chilek ba'aretz, they're not going to have a mitzvah of Yishuv Eretz Yisrael, so it's not a bittul. Okay, so this is how Rav Yaakov Kamenetsky answers the questions, but these questions and answers are already found in Rishonim. Okay, let's see the next piece very quickly. All the Mefarshim are bothered about the hemshech between the lav of Baal Tosef and the inyan of Baal Pa'ar. We know there's an Avodah Zarah called Baal Pa'ar. Right? It's interesting. In the Chuvas Harambam says there were three ancient Avodah Zarahs. There was Baal Pa'ar, there was Markulis, and then the third Avodah Zarah was Kemosh. Baal Pa'ar, you serve, you uncover yourself, and you defecate in front of the Avodah Zarah. Markulis, you throw stones at. Kemosh was the Avodah Zarah of Mayav. How do you serve Kemosh? Take off your head covering. That was the way you serve the Avodah Zarah of Kemosh. You know, in the Taz holds that nowadays wearing a yarmulke is a chiyuv d'oraisa. That's what the Taz writes. Why? Because since Goyim have a chayk to take off their hats, so for a Jew to mimic the Goyim, it would be b'chukoseyim lo yisei leicha. Question is, why do Goyim take off their hat? Where do they get it from? Where do they get it from? It's rooted in ancient Avodah Zarah. It's rooted in the way they used to serve Avodah Zarah of Chumash. So anyway, question is, what is the Hemshech HaDvarim between Baal Pa'ar and Baal Tosef? Right? The Torah says, Lo soisifo al hadavar sha'anochi mitzavcha hayom v'lo sigru mimenu. And then it says, you saw what happened to Baal Pa'ar. Well, what does Baal Tosef have to do with Baal Pa'ar? Baal Tosef is don't add to the Torah. Baal Pa'ar is don't serve Avodah Zarah. And this is something that repeats itself. Rabbi Yaakov quotes in from Sefer Yeshua, when the Shvatim sent Pinchas and the Nesiim to warn the Bnei Gad and Bnei Ruvain not to make an extra Mizbeach, so Hashem says like this, Ma amal az asher ma'altem. What are you doing over here? B'vnoiseichem lechem Mizbeach. By building an extra Mizbeach, it's bad enough that we served Par, 100 years ago. And now you want to make another Mizbeach? Why are we invoking Par? Par's got, it has nothing to do with anything. Right? The pasuk says, "Ma amal zashem altem hama'at lonu savoin parash lo hitarnu mimeno ad hayom hazeh." In other words, says Rabbi Yaakov, "Harei sheshtamshu b'chet zeh b'chdei lohichichem al avoin asiyas mizbeach noisaf." Whenever we want to warn against adding to the Torah, we always invoke Baal Pa'ar. So Rabbi Yaakov has a very interesting explanation for this. He says like this: why in the world would a Jew want to serve Baal Pa'ar? I mean, uncover yourself and go to the bathroom in front of the Avodah Zarah. What's the taiva to do such a thing? Says Rav Yaakov, obviously they did it l'shem shamayim. What's l'shem shamayim? We know that busha is not always such a good midah. Someone who has busha, okay, in general, Klal Yisrael are baishanim rachmanim goyim lechasadim. But Chazal also say, eina baishan lomed. Someone who has shame, he'll never learn properly. He'll always be too embarrassed to clarify, to ask, to make sure he gets the learning straight. Eina baishan lomed. So therefore, many Jews rationalize, they want to work on their busha. How are they going to work on their busha? They're going to go to the Avodah Zarah Baal Pa'ar. They're going to uncover themselves. They're going to defecate in front of the Avodah Zarah. They're going to shame themselves publicly like Nevardik Musar. They say about in the Yeshiva Nevardik, they worked on making themselves oblivious to what people think. Right? A lot of people would be a lot better if they really didn't care so much what people think. Everyone's worried. What's someone going to say? People say, really you're allowed to greet people on Tisha B'Av. Why? Because, what are people going to say? What are people going to say? What's the Shulchan Aruch going to say? Shulchan Aruch says you can't do it. People maybe would daven longer Shemona Esrei. Yeah, but the guy next to them is going to think they're a big frummy, so they don't want to, people are held back by public opinion. So in Nevardik, they used to go into the pharmacy, and they used to, say, you sell nails over here? They used to go into the fish store. You sell nails? And the guy said, this is a fish store, not a nail store. And they would work on themselves, chinuch hamusar, to make it that they shouldn't care what people think. They shouldn't care about public opinion. So we see, Nevardik and Musar dates back to the Dar HaMidbar. You had Jews, they were working on their busha. So they figured, how are they going to work on their busha? They're going to uncover themselves publicly. They're going to defecate in front of the Avodah Zarah. This is how other people serve it? No, but we have in mind to embarrass Avodah Zarah. Says Rav Yaakov, but nobody asked them to do this. Nobody asked them to work on their midos in a way which is not prescribed by the Torah. By the way, the Kli Yakar says the same thing. Nobody asked them to do this. This is their choice of Avodas Hashem. People like to choose how to, you ask them, what in the world are you doing? It's not in Shulchan Aruch. I like to serve Hashem this way. Wonderful. So, start your own religion. That's what Hashem is saying. Don't add on to the Torah. Because you add on to the Torah, you know where it's going? Baal Pa'ar. That's what Baal Pa'ar was. Baal Pa'ar was a bunch of very well-meaning Balei Musar. Bunch of very well-meaning Jews who were working on their midas, working on their avodas Hashem, l'shem shamayim. If you would have asked them, they would have said, we're on the highest level of Klal Yisrael. I don't understand Moshe Rabbeinu. Why isn't he serving Baal Pa'ar? He should do what we're doing. Says Rav Yaakov, but ultimately their mistake was they're adding to the Torah. Because halacha is, if this is the way that you serve Avodah Zarah, Doesn't matter if you have in mind that this is a bizayon. Nevertheless, the halacha answers it, and with all of your redeeming kavanos, nevertheless the Torah says lo yisifu al hadavar, because einechem harois asher asa Hashem beval pa'ar. Rabbi, have a wonderful day.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.